I think that you should never duplicate what somebody else is doing. You should also never replicate it. What you should do is reverse engineering. So reverse engineering is you're thinking about why did it work for them. So that way, it's not even about what they actually did, right? It's about all of the insights that led them to that point, right? Is there something special about the industry that made that a great idea for them? I think there's a popular kind of tweet that says people make, especially technical founders, say like product sells itself, and they'll talk about how like with Apple, Apple doesn't need to do a lot of payments. And then they forget that Apple is not at the same stage that it started with. And when you look at the early days of Apple, Apple was doing the exact aggressive marketing that they are telling you should not be doing now, right? Marketing doesn't have to be creative at all. Especially when you're doing commercial marketing, like, it's a lot better to be clear, right, than to be creative, right? So before it to be creativity first without necessarily thinking of any like conversion goals or whatever. So now I do think of, okay, what is the exact goal we're trying to achieve? Who are we trying to reach, right? And then if there's a way we can reach those people with creative messages, then creative comes in as an add-on rather than creativity being the only clutch.
It's very easy to fall into the trap of doing everything as a marketer, right? And marketing is such a front-facing function where people will have opinions, people will have ideas. You might be, at night your CEO texts you and say, let's do this thing tomorrow. How do you, for your work, figure out, what might be a bad idea and not the best use of your time?
First thing is you yourself need to be grounded in data, right? And the data doesn't even have to be like numbers that say, oh, this channel is working. The data could be like qualitative data from your previous experiences, right? From or even from what you've heard other marketers say. And you need to come back to data saying that, okay, this is why I don't think this and this can work, right? And you are also understanding where they are coming from, why they think it can work. Because that's what makes it easier for you to give an answer that they can understand. So you listen to what they're saying, right? And then you are doing data not just to convince whoever you're trying to defend against, but also to convince yourself whether it's the right or the wrong decision. Right? Now, if you're fully convinced that it's not the right decision, and you cannot convince your leadership or your management or whatever it is that it's not the right decision, then if you're wondering how to stand out in the market of competitors, it's not just looking at what your competitors are doing, it's what users think about what your competitors are doing. When you look at reviews, right, it helps you know what features are the expected features that people expect to always see. And if you don't deliver that feature to them, they are not even going to come at all. You know which features they don't expect to see, but like they love it so much, right? Like they didn't expect, if you don't give them that feature, no problem. But if you give them, they're going to be like that for you and right for you. You know which features, like if you have it, they are actively annoying people.
Our crafter for today is Lade Falobi. Lade is a product marketer and creator for Marketing for Geeks, a widely read newsletter delivering actionable product marketing insights to thousands of subscribers, including professionals at Flutterwave, Google, and PiggyVest. She currently serves as a consultant and fractional product marketer to early-stage B2B SaaS startups. She began her career with a foundation in content marketing before focusing on product marketing, growth strategy, and B2B SaaS. Lade has built a reputation for blending storytelling with strategic execution, and through Marketing for Geeks, she shares growth stories, frameworks, and playbooks to help marketers and founders build repeatable, sustainable strategies. In today's episode, we talked about balancing creativity and clarity in conversion marketing, how marketers can handle endless suggestions and identify bad ideas, key mindsets that junior marketers need for growth, the challenges of working in marketing without leadership buy-in, and some practical steps to gaining trust from management through small wins, Lade's personal philosophy on career intentionality and treating your career as seriously as you would your job, and overcoming fears and embracing public accountability through building in public, something I know many of us struggle with. As we go through the episode today, please drop comments, like, subscribe, and share with someone in your network who might find this useful. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy.
Lade, you've had a long career so far working in comms, copywriting, content marketing, product marketing, and now you've gone fractional, which, for those listening, that's where you can work part-time or project-based rather than full-time or in-house. Lade, is there a reason you chose to go fractional now?
Yeah, so I actually started thinking about it before I left my last job. One of the reasons why I left my last job was I felt like I wasn't doing as much of the things I enjoyed doing. So what I enjoyed doing was product marketing, and I started to do more content marketing. And it made me realize, I enjoy doing product marketing a lot more than I do content marketing. Right? I enjoy content marketing more like, when I'm doing it for myself, like for my newsletter, for example. I'm overarching strategies for business. Anyway, I think about it for less in the what I want to do next. The full-time job is harder to control all of the moving parts of what exactly they're going to be doing. But at the end of the day, it still has to be whatever is going to come to grow. Then when you're at the senior level, right, you're not the specialist person anymore. I wanted to get back to the things I love doing, and so that's why I decided, I'm going to do a fractional product marketing. While I've been doing that for about 3 months now, and I focus on the things I enjoy doing, just product marketing. It's been going good, basically. Right now, I think I'm not even ready to go back full time. I'm starting to see if the money I'm getting for fractional work can fund projects, right, that are projects I want to do, for example. I've done this kind of projects that I want to work on while giving me enough free time.
Thank you very much for that. I think we'll come back to this later, which is your ability to be able to pause or go slow in order to be able to go fast, right? We talk a lot we talk a lot about being intentional about your career, and we'll go into some of that later on and how you think about that. But thank you very much for mentioning that. You currently now run you also run marketing for Geeks, where you help folks get smarter with marketing. Is there something you've learned from doing deep dives in marketing that shows up again and again? Is there any common threads amongst marketers or marketing as a profession that you have noticed?
Yeah, there is actually. I think more specifically is, so my newsletter is follow vision, which is where I interview senior marketing leaders and successful African leaders, and I ask them questions about the actual marketing strategies they're doing. And what I've realized is all of the most successful products, especially those who are able to take risks with their marketing, who are doing things that are like bold and a little different from what everybody else is doing, it's because they're in an environment where leadership supports them, right? So the big lesson is basically if the leadership, the management isn't right behind you on everything that you're doing, it's going to be extremely tough, basically, right? I talked with the country manager for Senua. We're talking about they had their viral ad that people were saying, we get the backlash from one of the controversies because they're directly calling out competitors like cheaper cash. And he was saying he wasn't worried at all because he had full internal backing. Like everybody was supportive, there wasn't going to be a problem. And because of that culture, right, when you could actually take risks, that's what they were able to do. Similar story with when I spoke to the head of content at PiggyVest, their leadership trusts the content team enough to let them take this, like they're developing a comic series, to let them do the senior reports and things like that. So it's a similar thing about all of the ones that do. There's only so much you can do when your leadership doesn't fully align with everything. If they don't align, no matter how creative you try to be or how bold or how whatever else you're trying to do, it's going to be extremely difficult to accomplish.
Every marketer who listens to this will probably be able to relate to the fact that working with leadership, there's some things that there's so much red tape where everybody is like, okay, that might be too risky for. Obviously, there are things you should be aware of, with your marketing, but there's just so much red tape around it where it's stressful. People want Duolingo's style virality, but are not able to.
I think one of the things I also learned is that you can teach management to trust you. So kids, I think you can actually give them enough reason to trust that when you say you're going to do this, you're basically stop and do, and they're willing to be accountable for all of the work you're thinking. So yeah, throughout all these interviews, I was just saying good well.
I'm curious, do you have any tips for how people can smartly get buy-ins from management for to be able to explore this much with marketing?
I actually do, and some of these are tips from my own experience, some are tips from conversations I've had with other marketers. But from my own experience, one of the things that really helps me is I show evidence. I think that's the general thing, when it's just showing evidence. And for me, that evidence could be, I know what companies my CEO or respect, for example. So I know what kind of companies they respect. I know the marketers whose opinion they really cares about. And so when I'm showing evidence, I'm showing proof of, this company that really like this, and this, and that. One of the things I worked at when I was at Motherboard, I worked on the product strategy. And while I was working on the product strategy, one of the things I did was I asked the CEO, what companies do you want Motherboard to be like in all of these different aspects? It was a B2B2C, like a marketplace with so many players. In general, who do we want to be like? And at all of these different places, want to be like. And that made it easier to defend anything I wanted to do. To be able to say, oh, this is, like, look at what this company that you expect that you wanted to be like, this was their path, and this is how we fit it. It could be showing case studies from other, like, getting successful case studies. Maybe it's never companies you respect, but also case studies showing that companies in similar industries and similar positions have been successful with this kind of thing. And then another thing, which I think is both from my experience and also from conversation, is do small things. Right? Like, give them small reasons to trust you. So take a small thing that you can be accountable for and do it really well. And then the next big thing, they're willing to trust you. So it could be this. I mean, with Tenora, for example, before they did this like controversial ads that they promoted, one of the things they first did was they made a comparison, and it was because they've gotten that trust that, okay, on a minimal level, this works. So you can invest more resources into it. When I was at Motherboard, I also did something similar. The product marketer working with it wanted to do like BuzzFeed style quizzes as part of our content marketing strategy. It was brilliant. She had proposed, but she created like a full PRD of like, let's build like the internal ability to be able to do things. For something we might have been able to do with website or whatever. So CEO saw it and image was like, oh, that this is an entire product that we're trying to build as a single marketing channel. And so we had to get this trust basically. And so what the product marketer did and I worked with her to do was she then created Tally, which is like a basic form creator, like Google Forms type form. So she used Tally to create the form. So another good thing about having people, working with people you can trust is I didn't need to do a lot of guidance there. Like once I told her that we can do this thing with Tally, she went to build it in Tally, just came and asked me questions to like check it out. And so we built it in Tally and then she launched it. And I think so far we've been doing, there was no promotion on it other than she posted it in the HR community. And we have to check it has been taken by over 10,000 people. And that was just like a simple Tally form. What we did was we used Tally. We still Tally allows you to embed the code on the website. People workflow, no code. We didn't involve the designer for anything. We didn't involve developers. I so embedded it on the website and the blog, so to look at it, created in the blog post. And it has been mostly driven by search traffic. If it has gotten taken 20,000 times, imagine how many people have viewed it. All of that. So after that, like we didn't have to talk too much again, right, to propose any kind of thing because we have seen the results from something that didn't require a lot of effort. So sometimes if there's something that's going to require too much money or too much engineering effort that might not be existing, it's very DIY way you can do like a small version of it and they can see that, okay, this thing works. Invest more time and effort.
Looks like the core advice here is experiment in small ways or be able to gather a bunch of small wins and then be able to show that with your leaders. It makes them more likely to trust you with larger bets because with these small wins, with these small projects, you're able to win and then show evidence of winning, right? So that they trust you a bit more. Show evidence of places where the things that you're trying to accomplish may have worked or may have done fairly well. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, kind of on the flip side of this point you just mentioned, is there a mindset you used to have about marketing, especially now with running your own thing and learning from other marketers that you no longer think holds true? So let's say a couple years back in your marketing career, was there something you thought was, the holy grail, but now you don't think that, holds as true as it did?
Yeah, I think I used to think the marketing had to be creative. And that's because when I started my career in copywriting, and I was doing copywriting, which I was now adding to spending time on sites like Ads of the World. I would go and search creative billboard ads, radio ads. It's done this kind of very creative work, beautiful work, right? But it's mostly brand marketing, right? So it's not necessarily product marketing, right? We're not talking about the product like so in your face. but the brand, like the imagery, the visuals, everything, the copy, brand voice, and so like everything just sticks together and is beautiful. Right? And I used to think all marketing has to be like that. And I think there was even a time, that was like maybe 4 years back or so, maybe 3 years. I can't remember when. I think it was 3 years. Branding to someone about an ad and stuff like OP. And if you see any OP ad, you know what I mean? Very cringe, they are very like they are speaking to somebody who doesn't know anything, right? And I was critiquing it and I was saying like, that what are these ones doing and all like that. And it's so funny because it was maybe 6 months or a year after that I wrote an article in my newsletter where I was basically saying that OP actually doesn't have a branding and marketing problem. I thought that in that short time I was able to actually quickly learn that marketing doesn't have to be creative at all. Especially when you're doing commercial marketing. Like, it's a lot better to be clear than to be creative. So I do appreciate a lot of creative marketing. I do love to see creative marketing as much as possible. Try to add creativity because this is what will make you stand out. But now I don't think creativity first. So before it would be creativity first without necessarily thinking of any like conversion goals or whatever. So now I do think of, okay, what is the exact goal we're trying to achieve? Who are we trying to reach? And then if there's a way we can reach those people with creative method, creativity comes in as an add-on rather than creativity being the only clutch. And I used to think creativity only one way to, I used to think it needs like flashy, cool, like brands. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like this flashy, cool brands with the visuals, right? But it can look so many different ways. It doesn't have to look one way at all. Right? So yeah, I think that's one key thing that I think changed my mind on.
So marketing definitely does need some creativity, but also learn when to lean into, simplicity and lots of clarity to get people to even, especially as a product marketer, to get people to even understand the thing you're selling to them.
Even knowing who your audience is as well, right? So because for example, with Opie, you have to one thing I said is that flashy brand marketing has actually turned the common person away from Opie. And because if you think about OP historically, OP has been like for the grassroots brand because they did all right. Then you could take bike rides. Anybody used to take I think they had a Wednesday deal where you take bikes from anywhere in Ibadan. So they've always been very cheap. Like everything under the Opa group has always been very cheap for the grassroots people. And there's something about branding where there's a perception thing where if you see a brand that has the particular type of branding, you're expected to pay a lot for this. Like if you go to buy food, the condition you'd have for a place the same jollof rice you buy at the normal food place, right? You could buy the exact same thing at the high class place and expecting to pay more. And you pay that more at that high class place because of the perception that you build. But the day that you're looking for something that is cheap to just get the job done, you're not going to get the high class place. And what is a product that helps you get the job done? So for them, it's actually like the branding is actually matching their customer expectations. They're not selling to the high class person that is looking for something fancy that makes them look good or feel good. They're looking for something that gets the job done like very efficiently. So that's why I think their branding sort of works, even though customers still might not be a big fan, but like it works to be honest. And I think it makes sense for their customers.
Yeah, I tried OP once, I think about a year ago, and I've not gone back. I have not gone back like after trying it. But like the lesson there is obviously know who it is that you want to serve, right? And then make sure that your product speaks to them, right? Make sure try to be as clear as possible with your whatever language it is you're using to try to speak to them, but understanding them and being direct to your communication with them. These are very profound points. We've talked about sort of a lot of red tape and getting buy-in and getting trust from senior management around marketing and marketing experiments. It's really common for marketing to put on the back burner when it comes to budgets. A lot of companies have one-person marketing teams. How do you think business owners should start thinking about marketing as a relevant piece of this business you're trying to build? Where should they bring marketing in?
I think I've thought about this I thought about it because I had a potential client who got a discovery from me. We wanted to hire a sports marketer. We are asking him who you should hire. And then the problem is who you should hire is not a simple question when you're early stage. Because if you're a founder who has zero knowledge in marketing, you have no idea what kind of channels make sense for you, what kind of skills specifically that you need in that moment. And that's why they then try to hire one person that can do a million things. Because they have no idea what they actually know or what could work for them. They're looking for somebody that will come and try a million things and hopefully like throw 10 stores, at least maybe 3 will enter. And the problem is that marketing is not a game of throwing things at the wall and saying what sticks it in. You know what works and then you're doubling down on it. And then you're bringing that one person and layering all of these expectations on that person. So the advice I gave him was this, that you have the first option is you as a founder need to learn marketing yourself. I had a last founder I worked with, like he was on YouTube like every single time, he was following marketing people on LinkedIn because he wanted to learn enough that he could make like wine hires. He could hire people, especially specific people who have tested out this channel. He knows maybe newsletters work for them, so he's going to hire a newsletter editor specifically because they have tested out that and knows exactly what to do. Right, so that's option one. Option two is that you hire a fractional person, like somebody who will come in part-time, but who has enough seniority and enough generalist knowledge that they can try out different things, but they're coming in on a part-time basis. And they're coming in with the expectation that they're coming to test different things and see what channels work for you, and then they can advise you on who you should then hire. Because it's not enough to say, okay, you know what, I think social media makes sense. Social media is fast, right? There are people who skill like is solely in TikTok, any video kind of content is them. And some people who skill is like doing LinkedIn like personal brand content. Some people it's like Twitter like memes and knowing how to like reply guys kind of thing. And if you just say you're looking for someone on social media, you're just making it better on social media. They're going to put out the social media role. But you could hire someone that, is very great at writing like text content on Twitter. But you're looking for them to do Instagram reels. And then there's a disconnect and they're confused and they're tired because you hire them to do something that doesn't make sense for them. So if you hire someone like part-time that has this general knowledge and they can step up with this person and say, okay, you know what, I think social media, after doing all of this, posted a bit on social media, then TikTok is going to be the strongest channel. So you can hire a social media person that has heavy strength in TikTok. And then that's when you are going to hire to come on board. Right? So the third option is you hire a generalist marketer for the start, but you make it clear that you're hiring this generalist marketer to do generalist things. And I'm not expecting them to go deep because that's one of the reasons why marketers are complaining. Right? It's not just that the founder expects you to try different things. It is that they're putting expectations on you as if you're a specialist in all of these things. So they come to them and tell you, you know what, I think we should run that. And then tomorrow they come and say, you know what, let's start a newsletter. So the next day they say, let's start a YouTube channel. And they are putting expectations on you as if you are a specialist in all of these things. And I think you have the time to devote attention to each of these things on his own. The advice there is hire a generalist, but make it clear that you're hiring a generalist. Like, let the job description be very clear that you're hiring a person to test out different channels. Don't expect them to go deep in anything yet. And you're hoping, because generalists make good leads. Right? So you're hoping that this person will then be able to find out enough and be able to build their own thing based on what they need. That's one of the things I actually did at Motherboard. I joined Motherboard. They had a social media person that was already going to leave in like 2 weeks. So when I first joined, I think Motherboard was my first fully like core leadership role. So I joined it and I was saying, oh, this social media person is leaving. So we hire another social media person. Thank God for founders who actually did think and they're like, you know, wait first, let's not hire first, right? Like it was costing because of budget and because there are a lot of moving parts at the time. But it actually gave me time to think about what we needed. And then I realized, we don't need somebody who's constantly social media. We need a product marketer. Someone who like has a product mindset, but can do product marketing for demand generation challenge. So we had to change what we're looking for from social media manager, product marketer for demand generation challenge, because that's the kind of mindset, like kind of person that you're looking for. So I think that's the advice for the founders. The other really advice for the marketers, because there's nothing you can do, to be honest. There's only so much you can do. You can't beat your founder. So if they are giving you things that are you can fight or you can quit.
It is so funny that you mentioned that because my exact next question is how should marketers handle this? Yeah, I think these are very concrete points. I was taking notes, but it looks like the core things are, 3 ways that you can handle, the situation where, that marketing is critical. That marketing is important, but, doing the right thing for your business. One is, learn to lead marketing yourself as the founder, right? And try to figure out on your own what are the channels that work for your business, right? And then, as you begin to recognize those, you can then double down on those and maybe hire people to then focus on those things because you've seen that they work. And then the other one is hire a fractional, more senior person, right? That's able to come in and have, like, I guess, a bird's eye view of all the things that are happening and is able to advise and say, let's not do this. Let's think about it a bit more, and figure out what's next. And then the last one is hiring a generalist, but being clear that you're hiring them for a generalist role, right? Not that you hire, not that you hire a generalist and then they're coming on and then you're expecting them to do wonders, make your company become, the next Google, the next Google overnight. That won't happen. But thank you very much for sharing that. And you also touched on something which is really, what a lot of us can relate to as marketers, which is it's very easy to fall into the trap of doing everything as a marketer, right? So this company is doing TikTok. Let's do TikTok. They are writing blogs. Let's write a blog. This person is on a panel. Let's go on a panel, right? And marketing is such a front-facing function where people will have opinions, people will have ideas. You might be, at night your CEO texts you and say, let's do this thing tomorrow. Tomorrow. How do you, for your work, figure out, what might be a bad idea, and not the best use of your time, even when, the CEO recommends it?
I think, one thing you learn about marketing quickly is you're working with it. You get 1 million ideas. Everybody seems to know more about marketing than you do. I think first thing is you yourself need to be grounded in data. And the data doesn't even have to be like numbers that say, this channel is working. The data could be like qualitative data from your previous experiences. Or even from what you've heard other marketers say, right? So you're in a marketing community and you've seen like a lot of people say this particular channel doesn't work. And these people have tried it out. So that's your first sign, it's your first red flag. And all of these things, you're marking them mentally a red flag. Maybe first red flag is you've heard people saying that, LinkedIn is way too expensive for paid ads, right? You've heard that as the first red flag. Maybe there is a similar company in the industry, right? Like the market leader and they've never done LinkedIn ads before, right? Maybe that's your second. Or maybe there's also a green flag, or maybe there is one company that is doing something really creative with it, and they're doing amazing. Basically, you're weighing all of these things together, and then you're going to table this. If the person is just a member of your, like, someone in maybe engineering, you don't actually have to defend your choices to them. But if it's say your CEO, don't give inside this, then you need to come back with data saying that, okay, this is why I don't think this and this can work. And you're also understanding where they are coming from, why they think it can work. Because that's what makes it easier for you to give an answer that they can understand. So if you think it can work because they send viral content, I work at a company where my CEO told me, wants us to created a social media strategy, we were saying that how do we not just Gen Zs inside this social media strategy, like how are we going to reach Gen Zs, right? And I have to also understand that, it's coming from that because every day you hear about going viral, let's something in Gen Zs, right? Because that was chronically online, right? And so you first have to come with the fact that where is the intersection between these people, the same we should target, and people that are actual targeted, right? That was the first proof that I came with. These people that you want us to meet, they could give us variety, but the question is, are they getting us in front of the exact right people that we should be targeting? So those are kind of, now the person is not, I think even another thing is you should not immediately be trying to turn down, reject somebody's advice just because they don't work in marketing, right? Because it can be reflect like a major thing that if somebody is not working in marketing, trying to tell you how to do your job, maybe they don't know what they're talking about. There actually is room that you should listen to what they're saying, and then you are doing this not just to convince whoever you're trying to defend against, but also to convince yourself whether it is the right or the wrong decision. Right? Then you are fully convinced that it is not the right decision, and you cannot convince your leadership or your management or whether it is that it's not the right decision. Come back. So if the results turn out to be good, then great. Like you mentioned, you're wrong and we've learned something new. And they turn out to be bad. No. You don't have to be blind. You don't have to look at the person who's shutting down everybody's ideas. Now it's showing that it's tested and it can work. So that's pretty much it. But like I said, you should also still be open to trying new things. But of course, trying new things in a very, very small bites. Because sometimes, even though a channel might not have worked for some people, sometimes it's not a channel problem, sometimes it's an execution problem. So some people might say LinkedIn doesn't work, right? So it could also be how you are doing things on LinkedIn. It could be that you're posting on from your company page, and the way LinkedIn works is actually have favoritism for personal accounts than a company account. If your even an intern in your company should post the same thing that your brand page posted, that intern with 100 followers is going to get more engagement than your company page that has like, I don't know, 10K followers, right? So it could also be like, maybe the channel isn't on, maybe it's what is happening on that channel. So I think that's why you need to actually either believe in what you're doing or not believe in it. Because if you believe in it, then you're going to keep trying, like you're going to change the way you execute it.
So I'm trying to think about all the insights that you just shared, and in the space of less than 5 minutes, there's just been so much knowledge that has flowed right now. A bunch of the things that you mentioned, one is be grounded in data. That's how to figure out what idea is bad or best use of your time. Be very grounded in data. Also, so make mental notes of red flag. It can be mental note or written, whichever is the best for you. But make notes of red flags on things that have worked, have not worked for you, or have worked with others, or have not worked for others, so that you're able to be a bit more confident when saying, hey, I don't think this might work, and here's why. And then because someone doesn't work in marketing doesn't mean they're full of bad ideas. They're full of bad ideas. They might have some good ideas. Don't be very quick to turn down ideas and say, no, you're not in marketing. Leave me alone. And then, you're trying to learn and understand why something is working or doesn't work. So as you try to run experiments, especially for things that you can't disprove that works or doesn't work, you're not just trying to convince your team, you're also trying to convince yourself and say, okay, this actually works, or this doesn't work for us. And then it might be an execution problem. The channel might not be bad inherently for the thing you're trying to work or you're trying to do. It might also just be an execution problem. I'm curious, is there a low effort marketing experiment or tactic that has worked for you and you think more people should probably be exploring, like something that worked so well that you didn't even think it would be that that it will work that well?
I think it's tough to say because it's tough to find one thing that across every single industry. The one thing I think I isn't really a tactic as much as it's a philosophy or way of thinking. Right? I think, I believe, right, that every single marketing problem can be solved by asking about, like, by understanding your target audience. Right? Like, any single problem you think about in marketing can be solved by knowing exactly who you are targeting. If you know who you are targeting, you're not going to take questioning, like, which channel should you go on? Because you know who you are targeting, you know what channels they're on. And even within those channels, right, you know exactly what for communities they are on, right? Maybe it's not just that they are in Twitter, maybe they're in specific Twitter communities, or they're following very specific people on Twitter, right? And it's because you have this very deep knowledge of who you're targeting. If you're wondering what message to say to them, right, because you fully understand how, like, who you're talking to, and you look at what kind of messages resonate to them. If you're wondering how to stand out in the market of competitors, it's not just looking at what your competitors are doing, it's what users think about what your competitors are doing, right? So one of the things I do, for example, when I start with the new clients is I go to the reviews of their competitors and I look at all of the negative reviews and positive reviews. So what are the common things that people love about everything competitor, which means it's something that you probably have to always deliver because people expect. There's this kind of model I've talked about in my newsletter, the way of knowing like how people work, features that you need to have in a product, right? So when you look at reviews, right, it helps you know what features are the expected features that people expect to always see. And if you don't deliver that feature to them, they are not even going to come at all. So you know which features they don't expect to see, but like they love it so much, right? Like they didn't expect, if you don't give them that feature, no problem. But if you give them, they're going to be like that for you and right for you. You know which features, like if you have it, they are actively annoying people, right? Like you see that if it's there, it's really biting them, they're complaining about it. An example is if you look at what is happening in the loan industry, for example, common thing that people used to complain about is loans, right? Problem of having to do collateral and bringing 1 million documents and 2 million family members and like dropping that long process, right? And so now in no industry, how they will say this is the thing, the feature that people thought was supposed to be a feature of the banking industry. But it turned out to be a feature that everybody hates. And so what all of these new companies did was they eliminated that feature, they turned it into a bug. And that became a thing that people actually love. So that could also be something that you are doing with your marketing and selling, whatever. It's the thing that everybody has sort of come to expect. I am working on an AI, a client that does like an AI mobile app builder, right? And one of the things I noticed when I looked at reviews for Replit, Lovable, Bolt, some of these competitors, for all of them, users are saying that almost all of them, there's two major complaints. First one is that they get charged, this platform charge credit, right? So they get charged credit for bug fixes that are not their problem, right? They are not their fault. So it's very easy for me to say when I tested this my client's product and I saw that they had the same issue. He told them that this is one easy thing that will make you be very, very different from all of these others. Like it's one thing that people have been complaining from. So if you don't charge for bug fixes, this something you can use to tell people and say, all of the other features are often the same as everybody else. But this one thing is what we're taking out, right? So that's what looking at, again, understanding. So even when you're thinking of competitors, you're thinking of them in the context of users. So basically, any marketing question that you ever have, right, that you ever trying to think about, even product questions that you have, maybe start by thinking about who exactly your audience is.
I feel like it's understanding your audience is usually mostly talked about when it comes to, I guess, product management. But in marketing, you need to understand the customers as much because your job is to get it to them, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not able to get that to them, if you're not able to even understand who they are, then there's going to be a big challenge. So right now, this is, I guess, what most people consider a hot topic, right? So there's a lot of conversation about AI and its impact on our work, right? People are saying AI might take your job next week. By the next year, your job will no longer exist. How do you think junior or budding marketers should think about AI and their work right now?
Okay, so my hot take regarding AI is that the companies that are going to win in marketing are going to be the companies who sound the least like they are using AI. Right? And that's because right now, it's like marketing is differentiation, right? So when everybody is using AI in the exact same type of way, right? They're just saying, write me a blog post on this. And you know exactly how AI sounds. Even when you try to personalize it, like there are some cells that I'm not talking about the AI dash, please. Those are not the same, right? There are other cells in like market AI writing is very surface level, right? So some of the things that it does. So the kind of marketing that is then going to stand out is the one that doesn't look like it was done for AI. It doesn't matter if AI was actually involved or not, but that looks like it was done by a human, right? And that has like that humanized feeling in it. So I think you should use AI. I mean, I use AI myself, but the difference between the companies that everybody can tell are using AI and the companies that don't sound like they're using AI, whether they're using it or not, like we have no idea, is that one is relying on AI to do the work, right? So AI is like is the AI marketer, right? And the other one is relying on AI to assist them, which basically means that they have the knowledge. And the thing about all of these AI things is they understand what you feed into them, right? So if I tell an AI tool to, come up with a value proposition messaging document for this client, it's going to come up with something, right? And what's going to come up to somebody who doesn't know enough, it's going to look great. And that's why I can see that it's going to happen to the founders are going to think they don't need marketing because they're going to think that it's going to look great. But when you actually do know what you're doing, you know that you don't just ask AI to give you a value proposition. You have enough knowledge to feed it to assist you. So it could be you've done all of this competitor research, right? And you're feeding that into it. You've done the competitor research. You've done customer interviews and you're feeding the script from some of the customer interviews you've done. You've done, so when I do value proposition work, I have like frameworks I use, right? So whenever I want to work with AI to develop any kind of value proposition messaging, I don't ask it to come up with value proposition messaging. I tell it to just listen to everything I'm going to do. So I'm going to drop all of the information I've researched about our customers. I'm going to drop everything I've researched about competitors. I'm going to then ask it to do the workshop with me. So it is not doing the thinking for me. I've done all of the thinking, right? And I'm just asking it to link everything together, right? Like to link all of the thoughts that are in the more cohesive way. So then asking it, okay, for my value proposition workshop, what I do is I ask it, what are the bad, this is our job to be done, I've identified that. So what are the bad alternatives that will come if people don't use our product with this thing? So let's say it's like an Uber. Like if people don't use Uber to go to work, what are the bad alternatives that they're using? Maybe they're taking down phone, maybe they're driving themselves, maybe they're offering bus, maybe they're walking, whatever, right? And then next question I ask it is, what are the problems that come with using these bad alternatives? And then I ask it, what are the implications of these problems? So like twist the knife a little deeper. And it is from there that we develop the value prop messages. So there's a difference in the outcome of that process and the outcome of the process that is just tell it to do what you want it to do, right? Without you feeding it all the information that you have as a human marketer that have all of the content. So I think that's what human marketers need to do. You need to, yeah, you can use AI, right? But don't let AI be taking the lead, right? You should be not taking the lead. AI should just be helping you put your thoughts together in one cohesive way, right? That is not what AI should be there for. You should still have to do all of the thinking yourself, because if you leave it up to AI, it's going to bring very surface level information. If you haven't done any foundational work, what AI brings out is going to be good for you. Recently, I wanted to work on a comparison article for a client, right? Now I done some comparison research, but the format I did it in was not something that ChatGPT would have understood with me. And I have to admit, I was feeling very lazy on that day. I was like, let me see if GPT can actually help me get this thing done without me needing to restructure the comparison research I've done so it has the context. So I just thought it, like write an article of comparing like the best blah 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 tools. And it got an article. The article looked good on the surface level, right? But when I now sat down, read the data, to see that like we didn't understand a lot of the problems with this comparison, for example. And that's a critical thing if you're doing a comparison. If you want to stand out from every other one, you need to fully understand the things that people are complaining about with these tools, not just the surface level things that typically might see. I think to understand the deeper reasons why this is a problem, and then that would help your article like resonate more with people actually reading it. So it was not fully understood, and it looked good. Like I thought that if I gave it to the clients, they probably feel that this is good enough. But because I have that context, I have done all of the research, and I could see that this thing makes so many things that I could have said as strengths or as weaknesses in this and this places. I have to like scatter what GPT had done and just write it myself. So I feel like that's one thing I see marketers is like just outsource all of the thinking to AI and not give it any context or not do any of the foundational work yourself basically. And just okay, I'll say it is actually it ties back to there's a particular LinkedIn marketer in the US. I can't remember. He gave it a term. I can't remember what it's called. There's this thing that you must fall into in marketing, like which is basically, I think he called it autopilot marketing, right? Which is where you're just doing things for the sake of it. And I think that's the fundamental principle that's causing the problem with how people are living here. In the spirit of you are thinking about articles in the sense of let's just post this article so that because we have 5 articles we need to post this week. So let's just post this article so that we posted our article for this week. Let's just put this thing on social media because that's our goal. Let's just create this quick visual because that's what we're doing. I was not thinking deeply about why are we doing this? Like going back to this is the goal. Like you actually have a goal you're trying to make with this thing. And it's a very easy trap to be honest. Everybody falls into it at one point in the other where you just post something out for the sake of it and until somebody asks you like, is this the best you can do? Like do you think this actually makes sense? Do you think somebody's going to read this and to stop them from scrolling? Right? So like checkbox marketing. And I think it's the same problem that is then happening in AI. Because your goal is let's just get this work out, then it doesn't matter. You don't need to cross-check what AI does. You don't need to give it any extra information. You don't need to try to improve what it has done. You're just taking it immediately. Like you have 5 articles. AI is going to help you do 5 articles in one day. So copy on those articles and just post or mark the set something. You posted something without caring about something that you posted. Does it make one of the goals that you actually set up?
Lade, you are very vocal about building in public, which is, it can cause a lot of cold feet for whoever tries to think about that. Tell us a bit about your stance on that. Why do you think that's important?
So I think it's important for two reasons. The first is for yourself, purely for internal purposes. Right? It's important for you to document your growth, right? To see where you're coming from, where you're going to, right? What things you thought 6 months ago versus what you're thinking now. What kind of processes that you've used, right? It's very important to do that kind of comparison. And it's also important when you're posting publicly. It gives you both criticism and validation. These are two things that are important, again, for yourself. Internal growth. Validation is basically when you're thinking things, you're thinking thoughts about different things. So it is until you share them that you can know if other people are agreeing with you and if you're on the right track. Right? If you're working in a silo, maybe you're an early stage, a marketer at an early stage company, maybe you're able to do one doing it by yourself. Right? If you're not sharing that with anybody, there's nobody that can tell you that what you're doing, that you're doing an amazing job, right? Or even that your opinion on the way a particular brand is doing something, or your own takes, right, are valid or not valid. Once you share them, then you know whether you're doing no sense or not. And for me, that sharing actually helps you to grow like 5 times faster. But it helps you to grow like 5 times faster, right? Because the things that you might have held to be true in your head, it is until you talk about it to someone, to share it out there, and somebody tells you, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you can double down on it and stop that thing yourself. And I tell you, no, that actually doesn't make sense. Or maybe it's even the way you've been doing something, and then you talk about it and find out that there's an easier way that other people are doing it. So if you didn't share it, you'd have been holding on to that thought for like a longer time. Right? So that's why I think building in public, talking about what I do in public, so you get criticism and you get valuable feedback, and then you get validation of, are you on the right path? Are you doing amazing? And then give you confidence, like Mark, to hear that you actually are doing a good job. And yeah, I think that's like the importance of doing stuff. And then the other person is just for other people to see that you're doing a good job. And it's important because office politics is not just in the office, it's not just in the office, right? It is in the general like industry, there's industry politics, which is basically the idea that if you gather 5 people, for example, who are doing the same kind of thing, how would you know, based only off of what you're seeing, if you haven't had a conversation with all of them, it's harder to know who is doing an amazing job at things, and then you can then put forth a certain opportunity. And that's why I think they're a great fit for whatever organization this is, right? I mean, the only reason why we talk to them in this podcast is because we are seeing something that I posted in public that makes you think, oh, this person will have an interesting viewpoint to share if we talk more about it. So that's the external reason for sharing in public. It's not even necessarily about positioning for jobs on my newsletter or post on LinkedIn. It has nothing to do with fishing for jobs or trying to attain whatever. It is also so that people can see what I do. They can see what I think about certain things. And then they can see it aligned with certain things. Right? So they can say, okay, yeah, thought this person does exactly what I was hoping to come and share on my talk about at this event, right? And then they invite you to speak at that event. Apart from even just events, it could also be just a single junior marketer somewhere questioning what they are doing and questioning if they are doing the right thing. And they take seeing you post that you are experiencing the same challenges they're experiencing, or that you are trying similar things to what they've tried. Or maybe it's not even similar to what they've tried. Just talking about this is what you tried for the result. And you don't need to give anyone of one advice to that. Just them seeing what you posted about, they can already start to learn things. Like, these are the things that are actually working for industry leaders, right? But the challenges that I'm facing are not mine alone. So you're actually giving validation to somebody else, or you're teaching somebody else indirectly. Like, I don't post with the intention to teach anybody anything. I post it to think out loud, but it's a great side benefit that people can read what you've said, or they can listen to what you've said, and they're actually getting insights that they can apply in their own life.
Lots of things that you shared here. One, to track your growth, to help you understand, a year ago and now, here's where I am as, here's how I now think differently. But also validation. And a lot of times validation is, painted as something negative, But in this case, it'll work. The advantage it mostly is for you, right? There's so much advantages to that, in that you learn how other people are thinking about the same problem that you have. You learn that people agree with what you're saying, or people that don't agree, you're able to learn how they're able to do it and do things differently. So I guess in many ways, it makes you become smarter.
Exactly.
The other side of this, and I know that a lot of folks probably relate to this, and I do relate to this as well, which is the biggest fear that people have of sharing things in public is usually like fear of judgment, right? How do you think folks, can get past that? I do know I've had this myself. I've had to sort of get myself to get up and get over it. I've been planning this podcast since like November. I'm mostly just recording right now. Obviously, there are lots of logistical things that had to be done for this to get set up. There are also times where I'm like, people care about this thing that I am doing, or I should just like move on. How do you think folks can get past that part where they are, beginning to think people might judge them or people might not receive it as well?
I think first it's important to be comfortable with being judged. Like, if you can't get comfortable with the idea of being judged, try to. And the reason is that fear of judgment sort of blocks you from becoming better. It's like the same thing with imposter syndrome. Right? If you're still in imposter syndrome, you're too scared, like you're paralyzed, you can't do anything, you get to take risks. And then you end up almost becoming the imposter that you thought you were, right? Because you did not say anything in public, you did not take any risk. When you actually take that risk, then you find out if you're an imposter. Maybe there's a skill that you're missing. I think that's one thing people don't realize. The fact that if you're worried that you're not good enough, forget about the feeling. Do it afraid, right? But think about what is making you afraid. Say a skill that you think you don't have as much of. And then just build that skill and get more confidence in it, right? The part that you are most worried, the part you're feeling the most worried about, build skills in those parts, right? And it will actually make you feel a lot more confident, and it might reduce your imposter syndrome. So yeah, basically, if you can be comfortable, if you can get comfortable with being judged. But also, you don't have to start with talking about yourself right away. If you aren't able to become comfortable with being judged, because it can be a hard thing, it's not like something. I know it's easy to say like forget imposter syndrome and do it afraid and say like use it to identify skill gaps and all of that. Those things are very easy to say. They are hard things to actually do. So while you're feeling all of that fear, posting in public doesn't necessarily have to include posting. Sometimes you could start with just, for example, engaging with other people's work. And it also doesn't necessarily have to mean sharing your own opinion. It could also mean sharing the things that you are learning. So start with the small things that would make you, that you feel like you are less likely to be judged about. So if you're worried about sharing your opinion, maybe you watched a YouTube video recently and you had you learned something interesting from it. Talk about what you learned from that YouTube video. So you don't feel as judged because you are sharing something that is backed by somebody who you think other people respect. They're less likely to judge you and say, what are you talking about? Because it's not necessarily what you are saying. You're just saying what you learned from what somebody else said. And that can make you feel more comfortable in posting slowly and slowly. It could also be just you're engaging with what other people are, not just on LinkedIn, but they attend like a Twitter space. Right after they let you go and make like a post saying like these are 5 things they learned from this Twitter space, and it goes to like a great post. Or to be that they are reacting to what somebody else said. Right? So these are small things that it doesn't seem like it, but to be honest, they give you a lot more confidence in being able to talk out loud and be able to slowly build that confidence. Okay, I shared what I learned from this YouTube article, this uptick, and people didn't bite me for it. Then I had a similar thinking to that level. Maybe it ties into an experience or something I just did recently. Maybe I can share it and then tie it back to what that person. Look at what I did. I want this YouTube to be reminded me of this thing that I've been thinking about. Now you're getting to that point where like halfway in, halfway, like half sharing your opinion, half sharing the opinion. And then you start to feel more comfortable to point where you are able to at one point share things that are fully your own thoughts, your own opinions, your own expression, and what you've done. So yeah, basically tweets to say let go of your fear of being judged. But practically there are practical things that you can do to build up to the point where you are less scared about posting in public.
Thank you for that, Lade. So you hinted at this at the beginning, right? In a community like ours, it can feel, and I know that you're also vocal about this as well. It can feel like a luxury to tell someone to be intentional about their career, right? That feels like a smart thing to do, right? Sometimes I just need to take a job that will pay me right now. And it's hard to say, be intentional about this job that you're taking. Is there a way you think folks can, approach their career so it's still intentional? Even though, obviously there's always that, that thinking that, I need a job that pays me now. I don't care what the details are, just pay me. Is that way you think folks can approach their career so it's still intentional, so they don't wake up 10 years later with a resume that they hate?
So I think one like key philosophy, I guess, that helped me so far in my career is taking myself seriously. I take myself very seriously. And yet I'm constantly thinking about what I'm doing, and I'm thinking about how everything that I'm doing ties into the future that I want to have. I think that's going to make a difference. It's going to look differently for different people. For me, it means two things. The first thing it means is that I treat my career like a job. And it means that I am, at a job you have like KPIs, you have OKRs, you have things that, you have good targets that you need to meet. You're going to set these targets, you're going to do like check-ins to see if you're going to meet the targets, you're going to set out like initiatives that these are the things that are going to do to help you to meet these targets. And I basically do the exact same thing in my career. You take a job seriously, right? You have to take it seriously, because if you don't take it seriously, you get fired. That's what I think about in my career. Like, so I don't take my career as seriously as I take a job. I could get fired. I get fired means I deviate from like the goals I've set for my career, for example. And getting a promotion means that I achieve like a milestone goal that I wanted to meet in my career. When we go with your job, you have like KPIs, you have like annual planning session, you set like OKRs, you write for all of these goals. This is exactly how we plan to achieve these goals. I do the exact same thing for my career. So, and eventually, okay, these are the goals, the key objectives I have for my career this year. I already have like during that session, I also think a bit like, do I still have the same 5-year vision for my career as I did last year? Because people always ask me what you want to be like 5 years from now. It's tough because every year, you might change a little bit, right? You might learn something new about yourself, and that changes what you want that 5-year plan to look like. So I revisit it at the beginning of each year and say, okay, do I still want it to look the exact same? Is there anything that changed? But then I set a plan for the year. These are the exact things I want to achieve this year. Just this. And I did like the exact things I'm going to do to achieve them. So I like line down until you do have like a journey job, then you have it for like a marketing plan for the year. So I take it that seriously. And that's the part I mean about taking it seriously and being intentional about your career. And deciding what you want your career to look like. Maybe you don't know the 5-year part of it, right? Maybe you can just forget about 5 years. You think about 1 year from now, what kind of job title do you want to have? Or is there somebody whose career looks like what you want to be doing, right? Is there somebody who decided their career, like, this is exactly what I want my future to look like in like 3 years. So you can use that. And then what I do then is I reverse engineer my dream job or like my dream career path. Dream job means, for example, you want to be head of marketing in 3 years' time. Maybe you're able to specific about the industry. You want to be head of marketing in a B2B company, or you want to be head of marketing in a global company, whatever niche. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the job descriptions of head of marketing in that niche or in that location. What are the requirements for these people? What do their day-to-day, what are the day-to-day things? What tools do they need to know how to use? What skills do they need to have? And I'm going to then put that into my plan for the year. All of those skills that the person needs to have, I'm going to learn these skills. So it's like being very intentional about it. It's not just you happen to find yourself inside a career. It's like you should actually try to put yourself into a career. If there's something you're interested in doing, like go for it. Don't keep things in your head for too long. Try to bring them out as soon as possible. That means that I feel like learning this thing, like just like start learning this, to be honest, right? So that's the first part of it. Taking yourself seriously and building your career, is treating your career like a job. Then the second part for me is treating your job like a career. What that then means is I think about how every single job fits into the career path that I define for myself. So if I say I want to be head of marketing at a B2B company, right? If I have an offer from a B2C company, right, I think about, is this going to help me in the path that I decided I want to have? Or is it going to draw me back? Is it going to be something I'll have to be explaining away and saying, yeah, I know that part? Like, is it going to add into the goal that I decided I want to have? If say you want to work in fintech, right? Like, how are all of the different actions, different jobs that you know are going to add up to that? So that's why you then become intentional about what job you take. Because you know what you want your career. For each job that you're approaching, then think about how does it fit into my career? Is this something I'm going to enjoy doing? Is this something that's going to set me up for what I want to do? And in some cases, it also means that it might inform why you leave a job or why you stay at a job. right? So for every job, I sort of weigh, like, I have like a mental pros and cons with it. The pros are usually things that it does that hard to my career. So maybe it's like, this job is going to put me exactly in this path, or I'm going to do this kind of activities in this job, or I'm going to get this kind of result from this job that going to help me in my career path. And then the cons might be things like, maybe I don't have work-life balance, right? Or maybe it's that pay isn't as great as it could be. Or maybe it's that the title doesn't look like what I want it to look like. All of these are cons. So you then weigh the pros and cons, and you have to make a very honest decision. So like nobody else can influence the decision. Like, be honest about where you are right now, how committed you are to where you want to be, and then what you're willing to sacrifice. I think that's an important thing that people leave out of this career conversation, is that the sacrifice for everybody is a little different. Some people working in the exact same room, sacrificing different things. For one person, maybe they don't really care about having like a work-life balance. Maybe for another person, they can't take a lot of that pressure. You need to decide for yourself, what are all of the sacrifices that you're making, and are they worth it? For some people, it will be worth it. The reason why it's important to consider that is so that you are okay with every decision you make. An example is, I've stayed at a toxic job longer than I should have stayed. But I stayed because I was able to make, for me, the sacrifice was worth it at that point, right? I was able to get like a lot of brands that are on my resume. I was able to get like a lot of words to document activities I did there, perfectly lined up with the activities I wanted to be able to go in the future. So that's why I stayed at that job. And for other people that like, it made a lot of sense for them too, right? It made sense for them because that sacrifice wasn't worth it for them. For me, it was. And as I said, your career is like a super personal thing. So decide what is worth it for you, and that determines like what job, whether you stay at a job, whether you leave a job. So just be honest about what trade-offs are you willing to make, and then be honest about what your limits are. And then the final thing is just, I guess, because you're taking yourself so seriously and you're treating your job like a career, you have to do an amazing job at whatever you're doing. And then you have to document your wins at that job, like take screenshots of everything, document all of the processes. You did this exact day today. At the next job, maybe you're going to learn something from the mistakes you made at your last job, and you're going to do something differently. Maybe you're going to do the same way because you've learned that way actually worked. Take screenshots of all of your wins so that you can use those things to brag, put it in your portfolio, right? All of these things are like, I take my work with me everywhere. All of the work that I do, I take it with me because it is part of my own career. It is not part of the job. Like, yeah, I did it for the job, right? But it is part of my career. So I take my work with me every day. So that's what I mean by taking your career safe and being like intentional about what your career look like.
Lots of interesting insights. The key themes here are, being able to, I guess you might call it foresight, but also figure out where it is you want to get at a certain point. It doesn't have to be 5-year plan. It doesn't have to be 10 years because you don't know what you look like in 10 years, right? It can be 1 year, in 6 months. Where is it that you want to be, and how can you get yourself as close to that as possible with each decisions that you make with your job, with each decisions that you make with your next thing that you're venturing into. With marketing and I guess many other functions, it's easy to get drowned in the hard skills, right? So in the attribution, getting into the data and figuring out what works for the role or whatever it is you're trying to achieve. There's very little focus on the soft skills, right? And I think, especially for a function like marketing, I do think soft skills are very critical. Are there any soft skills that have basically really helped you in your career that you'd like for other folks to actually pay close attention to, especially juniors?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one is clarity of thought. I think I've spoken about it before. Basically, having like a very clear picture in your head of everything that you're doing, right? You have clarity of why you're doing it. You have clarity of how different things connect together, what all of them work up to, and then you're able to communicate that to other people in your team and communicate that to both internal and external stakeholders. And the only way you can do that is if you are very clear with it. And that's why you can defend it, because like you was very clear in your head what you're doing. And even shows the quality of the document that you put on, right? You create a strategy doc, and it's not just surface level things. It shows clearly that you talk about how these two ideas link together, and you're able to express that to the person reading it such that they fully understand why this channel is important and why they should invest the money in it. I think, yeah, that clarity of thought is important. And it also helps you to be able to reverse engineer things. I think that you should never duplicate what somebody else is doing. You should also never replicate it. What you should do is reverse engineer it. So copying is they do this thing, you do exactly the same thing. Replicating is they do this thing, you tweak it a little bit, and you replicate it. Maybe you do it, but put your own brand on top. You just say one or two things about it. But reverse engineering is you're thinking about why did it work for them. So that way, it's not even about what they actually did. It's about all of the insights that led them to that point. Right? Is there something special about the industry that made that a great idea for them? And it helps you to make sure that you don't do something that doesn't work in your context. So for example, what works for a big company, like there's some things that Flutterwave can get away with. Okay, for example, PayStack, right? When PayStack released on that, people are talking about all they do is like 1 year to do brand and they did all of this and that, and they will talk about how some brands don't go invest in marketing and they don't do this and this and that. And then you forget that you're not at the same stage with this company, right? But here, I think there's a popular kind of tweet that says people make especially technical founders, say like product sells itself. And they'll talk about how like, with Apple, Apple doesn't need to do a lot of payments. And then they forget that Apple is not at the same stage that it started with. And when you look at the early days of Apple, Apple was doing the exact aggressive marketing that they are telling you should not be doing now, right? They did, one of my favorite campaigns, they did Mac versus PC. I mean, when Apple did that campaign was beautiful, right? So they directly compared themselves against Mac. In fact, it's how they humanize Mac, so they put like an old guy to represent the PC. And they put like a young little guy to represent Mac. Like they made a series of ads directly talking about why Windows and PC is like outdated and Mac is like doing everything faster and better, like 10 times or whatever. So when people are talking about Apple now, they're saying about what Apple is doing now. But we are not a $1 billion company yet. Apple has a lot of brand equity. There is brand name. So it means when you become an household name, Adobe doesn't need to do conversion marketing, right, as much as a brand new one would have to do, right? They don't have to tell you why you should do something. You already know all of the things that they're doing. All they're doing at this point is just keeping themselves top of mind. They're reminding you that they exist. That they don't give away to increase your purchasing. So if you're not starting your own little brand and comparing yourself to another, you're going to fall because you should be comparing yourself to what they're doing at the very stage. So I guess that's what I mean by reverse engineering. So it's not just thinking about, Duolingo is doing this thing and this thing is working. You think about why is it working for Duolingo. So your answer might not, the insight to take away from that might not even be to do exactly what Duolingo is doing with the mascot. Maybe the insight could just be a general thing about like humanizing your brand. And for you, humanizing could come in a different way. It might mean that maybe it's not a mascot, maybe mascot works for Duolingo, but what works for a particular emotion, a particular audience is like a human persona, like an effect of power. Maybe in your case that works better than a mascot. Right? In some cases, be that it's okay, and we have a lot of, when I reverse engineering and I saw why it works for them, a lot of things also, those things also apply to us, and I think it can work for us to them, like replicate it. So there's a thing that I say, okay, there are some cultural differences that made it work for them here, and those cultural differences will make it not work for us here. My insight might even be to just not use anything for, like, don't let anything from them. Let them just say nice ad and walk away and go and look for your mates, right, to get ideas from. So in the cases you do learn things that you can apply, but apply in a way that makes sense for the event, for the content.
So clarity of thoughts and also smart, I guess I'll call it smart adaptation or smart copying. Right? So if you're going to copy something, at least copy and do it well and match it to your context as well. I do have questions from an ex-colleague. So I reached out to Tolulope Adeboye, who you worked with at Enterscale, and asked him, hey, what would you like for me to ask Lade? Tolu shared two questions with me. The first question is, what's the difference between working with and leading people you met in a professional setting versus people you already had a personal relationship with outside of work?
So, I mean, I've actually worked with friends before. I've worked with my partner before, even right? If you're doing good work, friend or no friend, I will put you on, right? And it just happens that a lot of my friends do amazing work, so I will put them on opportunities. So I've worked with people that I have worked with before. I've worked with people that maybe we had like a professional relationship before. I've worked with people that we had a personal relationship before. It's a tough thing, to be honest. Like I say, actually, it's a bit tough. There's a reason why people say, don't like mix work with friendship and stuff like that, because it's hard not to include like big things personalized. I think the difference is just maturity on both sides, I guess. Like knowing that we are at work for work, right? And trying to treat the relationship exactly as it is in that particular context. By that I mean that so there's two things that would happen. It is either that you are very lenient on this person because you know them, or you overcompensate by them being less lenient to them than you be to every other person. So you have to like try to find that fine line of like trying to think about if this person was a regular colleague, how would you approach this particular situation? You also should not avoid the fact that there is a personal relationship. So it means, for example, that I know what this person is good at, right? So if I recommended this person for this job, I know that they are good at this particular set of things, right? And I maybe even have examples that I can use to motivate them. So maybe I have ideas of what kind of things will motivate them when working. But so yeah, that's the main difference, I guess. Just that that awareness of, like, you have some awareness of their existing skills and their existing personality, which can make it easier to work with them. Also having the awareness of that you don't want to give them special or less than special treatment, right? You want to try to treat them similar to how you would other colleagues. I hope that sort of makes sense.
No, yeah, that does make sense. Making sure that you try to approach work as work, but also not dismissing the fact that you know them personally, so definitely keeping that in mind. The other question that Olope had for you is to rate your most preferred to least preferred, because you've tested all of these. So a full-time 9 to 5 role, a fractional in-house role, or a full-time entrepreneurship role. How would you rate them, and why do you have them in that order?
I mean, I haven't tried full-time entrepreneurship because that's what I want to try, but I still would be falling into fractional work. So it's hard to rate that. So I'm rating that now. I'm rating it based on how I think it could be, versus how it might actually be. So I think I'll put that in the middle. I think I'll put most preferred with I'm judging based on how I feel right now. So I guess I'll put first the fractional, like fractional work. I find that I have the work-life balance. I skip every weekend. I think recently, the past 2 weeks, I've made it twice a week that I go out to just skip. I have time to spend with like friends and loved ones and just continue that. And it's not that diversity of working with like different types of clients for them. So yeah, I'm enjoying that at this particular stage. If you had asked me the same question last year, I don't think I would have said I would enjoy it. It's solving for one of the problems, one of the reasons why I left the last year. Solving for that problem, so that's why it is tough for me. But last year or 2 years ago, I didn't have the same problem. Doing fractional work probably has been last for a reason effectively. The second would be full-time entrepreneurship. Then you really have the freedom you're talking about. When I come one of the risks, because you have all of the full rewards, but you also be on the risk yourself. And it also means that you might end up not having that work-life balance that you used to have, because you have to put in a lot of work to get things done, right? You have to take risks, you have to give out your time, you have to give out your money. And then last is the full 9 to 5 also. And that's just because I left it because of the problem of facing this, right? And I'm still enjoying this gig for full-time work, right? I don't think I'm returning to full-time for at least some months, sickness. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's how I need to say.
Yeah, thank you. I guess that's how you would rate it, but I wasn't I wasn't too sure. So this is my last question before we go into the lightning round, which I'm excited about. And thank you so much for the patience so far. How would you? This might be a hard question because it's been a little hard for the other guests I've spoken to. How would you simply and exhaustively define marketing?
Marketing is convincing people to buy into a product or service. That would be the most simplified way that I would put it, that still feels like a user exhaustive of different types of marketing. Yeah, that's basically what I think marketing. Everything marketing is persuasion, right? They're just trying to convince people. That's why I think it's important for marketers to understand like basic human psychology, because what you're doing is persuasion. No matter what type of marketing you're doing, no matter what stage, you're basically trying to persuade people to go from one stage to the next. And that stage is them going from never having heard about a product before to hearing about a product for the first time. Could be from them hearing about it to actually buying it, or to actually trying it, and then maybe the next step is actually buying it, and maybe the step after that is commitment to actually share it with other people. Right? So, but at this point, you're basically trying to convince them to do something. So, you're saying convince people to go from one stage to the next stage regarding your product.
That is, and actually, as you think about the different kinds of marketing, so there's influencer marketing, content, there's product. That's actually a very, very like good definition because you're actually basically trying to do the same thing. But thank you so much for that, Lade. We are now entering into my exciting lightning round. So we'll try to get through this as quick as possible. Is there a lesson you learned really late in your career as a marketer new marketers should be on the lookout for? Maybe a good way to think about this is there something you see new marketers doing now? They're like, okay, I will not do this.
I think my answer to that is completely different, actually. So my answer to that is basically taking advice from other people. My hot take about your career is that nobody can advise you on your career because nobody is going to be in your career with you. They're not going to have any of the context that you're doing, and even with the marketing that you're doing, nobody knows all of the context that you're doing. It's sweet to say one of the sweet things, I guess, about being fractional and being a consultant is it's sweet to come from the outside and tell people what's wrong with your marketing, what's wrong with your business. It is fix it, do this, do that, right? But the only person that is in now understands, they might have seen the exact same thing, but I want to understand the context of why it might not be possible. And maybe it is the engineering effort that is included. Maybe there's an internal strategy, whatever it is. Right? So when I say don't take advice from everybody, what I mean is that listen to what people are saying, like digest it, ingest it, but don't take everything they say as like your sort of truth, basically, right? It is what they say that you're going to do it. There's no career guru, right? Because whatever they will say might not necessarily apply to your context. They won't be saying take your career seriously and define your career path. There's some people who, because of the stage they're at in their life, they're basically living hand to mouth. And they don't have the luxury to turn down a job because they don't see their career path, right? So as I said, your career is your career. You're the only person that knows what sacrifices they are making for whatever decisions you're making. So one thing I see no marketers doing is basically, everybody's saying you should do this, so you're going to do that. Everybody's saying do the public, so you're going to do that. I say do the public, too, by the way. But everybody's saying do the public, so you're going to do the public. Everybody's saying use AI for this. Everybody's saying, like, basically following the trend rather than understanding why the trend is existing or why people are doing that and whether that actually works for the concept.
So basically, having a mind of your own and being able to filter through everything that comes at you. Is there a book, podcast, or resource that you follow that continues to help you or has helped you refine your craft over time?
Oh, there's a ton of them. I'm a big newsletter. I like Tiny Marketplace. I like Harry Drive's market, for example. I like Lenny's newsletter. I love how they grow, how different companies are grown. I love where we buy is great. Talk about like marketing, different psychology. I love there's a bunch of them. I like I've been enjoying this I think it's called the marketing playbook or something by Susanna in Nigeria, and I love that as well. There's a bunch of other ones. I don't know why everything is running from my head, but there's a ton of them that I like. They job, I'm going to do them. I know they're going to say something new or something great. Oh, I love people at Demand Call. Yeah, everything that Demand Call does, they're brilliant. I love how they're able to think in templates and frameworks and how they're great at documenting all of that and explaining that to people. Say some of the ones, there's a bunch more of them that maybe I'm running right now, but I will go to them.
Totally fine. I recognize some of these. I think I recently subscribed to the marketing playbook, which is, annoying to me that I found it late. I found it now, but thank you very much. I will link for whoever is listening. I will link all of these down in the show notes so you can try to find it. How might we be useful to you? Is there anything you're working on we should be on the lookout for? Where can we find you? Yes. How might we be useful to you?
I think the biggest thing is my newsletter. So I write the marketing for this newsletter. The newsletter for people who actually like marketing. That's the biggest thing because I like marketing. For the people who see an ad and want to talk about it, to have strong opinions about it, and who care about marketing enough that they want to do better, and they're interested in like learning more about it and understanding like the principles behind why certain things work or not work or how certain companies like that. So yeah, marketing for this, I think that will be like check out the newsletter. If you like what you subscribe, I do case studies on how successful companies are built. If you're if you're a founder of an early stage B2B SaaS job, you need some product marketing. Yeah, contact me and do a discovery call. Let's talk about how to help out with your product marketing. So that is two big things. Every other thing is sort of about the coming soon kind of thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lade, for that one. Thank you so much for, giving me this time, for being very patient with all of this. Thank you so much for, for your time, for a lot of the answers that you were giving. I kept saying, this is why I'm starting this podcast. To be able to get this knowledge, this is exactly why I'm starting this podcast. There's so much knowledge here, and I'm really, really grateful, for you dedicating the time here.
That's it, folks. I hope you found this episode useful. Thanks for tuning in and staying till the end. Let me know what you think in the comments and who you'd like to see next on the pod. Don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening from, and share with someone in your network who might find this useful. That's all for now. I'm Emmy, and I'll see you next time.